What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest, Kivanchi, and we are here with another Lovember rom-com movie Wednesday. Today we are going to be reviewing the film Brown Sugar. Now, this is a Black American classic, okay? Very nuanced and rooted in Black American culture, and more specifically, the inception and the birth of hip-hop and the way that hip-hop has influenced cultures around the world. Okay, now, I will say this before we begin. If you are in a relationship with someone and you suspect that the person you're in a relationship with or their best friend are in love with each other or one and the other, then go ahead and just turn this off. Like, it's just, you know, this is just one of those films. Like I said last week, a lot of these rom-coms are very YA novel. Like, if you read it in a book, it would be something that you, between the ages of like 12 and even 22, would look at and really be like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. The story is so amazing. I am 35, so watching this again, which I'm always gonna watch it, I love this movie. Watching it, I definitely have to put on the hat that I wore when I was a teenager and I first experienced a crush, and I was imagining like what my love story would look like as I got older, and you know, all the make-believe things that we do in our minds when we're like manifesting this invisible boyfriend or girlfriend, wife, husband, or whatever. And to me, that's what rom-coms do. It's supposed to be foolish. It's supposed to be hyper imaginative while drawing on real life situations that make you feel, and sometimes it means, you know, hurting your feelings while you're watching this movie or reading a book that's like in the same vein as this movie. That way, when the happily ever after comes, it's all sealed up nice in a bow, and you feel like you worked for this love. You feel like you went through the trenches, you went through the mud, and you came out at the end with your bae, with your boo. You know what I'm saying? So that is what these are about. If you're looking for something like super in-depth, where the plot is like hella deep or anything like that, like, no, we're not doing that. I do that in every other episode, and I do that with other film drops. But having these themes on each month on Wednesdays, it gives me the opportunity to really go to movies and to just talk about movies at face value. I think a lot of times people are looking for like the deeper meaning and the this, that, and the third. But if you sit and ask the average person what their favorite movie is, it's probably one of the dumbest fucking movies you can ever think of. The plot was trash. Cinematography was trash. Editing was garbage. But when you watch it and you go back into your memory, it takes you back to a time where life was simpler for you, life was easy for you, and you were able to imagine what your adult life would look like. So that is what we're doing each of these months. Like, the seriousness can come in these episodes that I be reviewing, but I want my Wednesdays, I want my hump days to be for the mess, to be for the ridiculousness, and to be for imagination. So Brown Sugar. Let's get into some facts, okay? First and foremost, it came out in 2002. I know some of y'all probably weren't born. It's okay. The movie is 1 hour and 49 minutes, so sometimes I'll be forgetting, but I like to give you all the time so you can figure out how to do that throughout your day. The writers, there's 2 writers credited on IMDb, Michael Elliott and Rick Fumuyiwa. And the logline: friends since childhood, a magazine editor and a hip-hop record exec stumble into romantic territory. The director is Rick Fumuyiwa. Cinematographer Enrique, Chediak, and Jeff Barnett. The editor is Dirk Westervelt. The composer is Robert Hurst, and there's also 21 people mentioned for the music department. The movie itself is rooted in hip-hop, it's rooted in music, and it's metaphorical to falling in love with the music and falling in love with the person as well. So I was hoping to find like a music supervisor, but I didn't. But it's a whole bunch of people in there. The music is so nostalgic. It's very, for me, like born in '89 and kind of going through like hip-hop getting its wings and flying and taking off. I just love listening to the soundtrack. And honestly, between the 90s and like up to like 2008, soundtracks were everything for a movie. And a lot of times it wasn't even necessarily about the music adding depth or layers to the story per se, so much as the music being a character within the movie. And that's really important, because when you think about a song, it's now tied to a memory and a core memory that you'll likely never forget. Literally was just on Twitter the other day, and they were like, what's a song that's related to a scene? And everybody's like posting these clips of different scenes, and a lot of the movies were from the 90s through the early 2000s, and a lot of them were Black rom-com movies. Hip-hop played a very important role in just the music department in a lot of these films. Even if it wasn't a black movie, it was just a lot of great songs that came out during that time. So I'm always gonna give credit where it's due for the music department, especially when the music makes sense in the movie or the TV show. All right, it stars Taye Diggs as Andre or Dre, Sanaa Lathan as Sydney or Sid, Queen Latifah as Sydney's cousin Francine, Nicole Ari Parker as Reese, who plays Dre's husband, Boris Kodjoe, who plays Kelby, who is Sydney's fiance, and Yasin Bey, aka Mos Def, who plays the character Cavi. So the movie starts off the way that Sydney's articles and her interviews always starts off. When did you fall in love with hip hop? So I was watching this movie and I was thinking about it like to myself, like, when did I fall in love with hip hop? So I fell in love with hip hop. The first memory of a song that is hip hop, I was 3.5 years old. Naughty by Nature came out with the song Hip Hop Hooray, December 1992. 3.5 years old. My memory goes back to like the age of 2 years old. But the reason this song particularly is like drawn to me is because my cousins, so I have an uncle who's a DJ, and my cousins and him will write like freestyles and just write raps. My one cousin, she would write songs and stuff like that. And so when the song came out, he had the beat, and my cousin who was singing and then my other cousins and stuff who was rapping, they all came up with their own cover for this song. I will never forget this song. No, I'm not gonna sing it, but I can call my cousin up right now and start singing her verse and she gonna jump in. Like, it was crazy. And so I was just this little kid watching them and thinking like, I want to do it, like I want to sing and I want to do that too. And my uncle, when he would watch me, like I said, he was in school and he was DJing, so I was always around music, always around hip-hop, rapping and stuff like that. So I grew up at the lunch tables freestyling and roasting and doing all that type of stuff. So like a lot of who I am and a lot of my childhood and teen years was rooted in hip-hop. So automatically when this movie first came out, it's just like, oh my god, this is my life. Like and I was 13, so you know, I'm on the cusp of just love and like, what is my life gonna look like? And this music and this song is singing to me, and then you got this fine cast of black and brown people in a movie called Brown Sugar. Like, it gets no better than that. You know what I'm saying? So we open up with, when did you first fall in love with hip-hop? And we kind of journey through a little bit of the past with Andre and Sydney. When they were kids, they met each other at the playground because it was a group of people like beatboxing. Slick Rick was in it, Dougie Fresh was in it. My dog is literally named after Dougie Fresh. And there was just like music going and everything like that. And she was trying to see, but she couldn't see. And then he called her up and he was like, hey, you can look at it from up here. And from there, they just had this connection. They always wanted to go out to the park, watch the adults, rap, dance, do all types of stuff. Not that breakdancing that they did in the US Olympics, but the real breakdancing, okay? And that's where their bond came. And Sydney loved it so much that even throughout middle school and high school and college and everything like that, she would write articles based on new hip-hop songs that came out, the up-and-coming people in music, who to watch out for labels and things like that. So she built notoriety in that department. He loved it so much that he became a hip-hop music executive and was working for a music company called Millennium. So they're besties, and you know, as besties who have grown up and not really been in like super serious relationships throughout their friendship, boundaries do not exist. But it's cute because there's just an implicit trust that can be who they want to be around each other without fear of judgment or anything like that. Now, we all know how certain things goes when you're friends with someone, but one person may like the other or vice versa, and you never say anything. So they're just friends, they're just doing whatever. When Dre decides that he wants to propose to the girl that he hadn't seen for a month. So Sydney's like, you don't even know her. He's like, listen, see, like she the one, like this, that, and the third, like it is what it is. And from there, she's like trying not to vomit the entire movie. So Francine, her cousin, played by Queen Latifah, she was like, girl, you literally are green in the face and your jaw is on the ground. Do you or do you not love this man like more than being platonic? And she's like, listen, no, like he's just my friend. And she's like, so you never thought about it? And we find out that in college, he asked her, like, do you ever want to like cross that line? And she said no. So now she said nah, but you ready to throw up every time you see him with his fiance and every time he's talking about getting married. So we have this angst, we have this push, we have this pull, and more importantly, we have someone lying to themselves. We're setting the scene for a true rom-com. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Brown Sugar, I would say that this is similar to, not gonna say like exact, but it's very similar to My Best Friend's Wedding, where somehow when they're moving on, you've just now realized you've loved them your whole life. So yeah, if you're not familiar with Brown Sugar and you know the movie My Best Friend's Wedding, then you would actually like this movie and it would make sense. I digress. So we're going through this whole thing and Sydney's like, look, you don't really know her. And it's very apparent when Reese, the fiance, invites Sid to her bridal party. And they're playing this guessing game like, who knows Dre more. Now, I ain't gonna be hold y'all. I have lived a life, y'all. So they playing this game and it's all these cards and the women around has to guess like the answers to the information, like fun facts or whatever about Dre. So Sydney is sitting there and she trying hard not to answer the questions. So she's eating like her little tea cakes or whatever, and she's like mumbling under her breath, and they're like, oh, do you know the answer? So then from there she's just answering all the questions, and Reese is kind of giving her a side eye, and everybody else is kind of looking at Reese like whatever. But let's talk about it. Y'all got engaged after a month, and this is his best friend since they were like 9. They're almost 30. I don't understand why you're squinty at her. It makes no sense. And it reminds me, I remember being at a bridal party that I did not want to go to, and a similar game was played with a lady and all of her friends, and it was me and 2 of my cousins and an aunt, and they were asking these questions and nobody was getting them right, and so I just started answering, and dead ass I had to be like 16, 17, and people was getting like mad, and I'm just like, I'm related to the person. I don't understand. So I definitely relate in that scene. Like, what are we supposed to do? That's my bestie. That's my bro. Like, I love him. But Reese is like, you know what? I'm not going to be that girl. I'm not going to be that girl. I knew who you were before I met, like when I met him. He's been upfront. It's cool. It's cool. I'm secure. I'm beautiful. I'm a lawyer. I have light eyes. And you know, she kind of clings to that. So we're going through these things, and Dre comes over. There was a situation that happened, and he skipped his bachelor party. So he comes over to Sydney's house, and she's in a towel because she just got out the shower. But the way that they interact is just like, it is what it is. And like, they're friends. So it's not made weird. It's not made like a thing or anything like that. He's coming over because he's upset, he's in distress, and he needs his best friend. So she's cheering him up and everything, and you know, she hugs him. She's like, look, everything is gonna be fine. Like, you need to get back to your bachelor party. You finna get married tomorrow. Like, you have a lot to look forward to. So, you know, she gives him a kiss on the forehead and gives him a kiss on the nose, which a lot of people do. I'm not gonna say everybody do that with their friends, but with your friends, you know, you develop boundaries, you develop relationships, and hopefully you talk about these things of what you can and cannot do to comfort one another. But then Mama's kissed him on the mouth with a slip of the tongue. Yes, guys, her tongue accidentally slipped into his mouth. And so they're kissing for like a solid 10 seconds, and she's like, hold on, like, oh, nah, we can't do this. And then she's like, wait, like, are you sure you want to get married tomorrow? And he's like, look, you right, we stopped it before anything, you know, got crazy. I'm gonna get married. So she goes to the wedding, and Francine's like looking at them, and she was like, bitch, what the fuck happened between y'all? Did y'all do the nasty? And they're talking and like loud whispering during the wedding, and she's like, no, it was just a kiss. And then Francine was like, did you use tongue? She's talking about something a little bit. And they're doing all this other stuff, and it's kind of disruptive. And Francine's like, bitch, interrupt this wedding, girl. She is marrying your man. Like, don't do this. But they make it through the wedding, and boom, happily ever after. So from here, Sid is just like, look, I gotta move on, you know, maybe I'm just imagining that this could be something more. So she has an interview with this basketball player who's Kelby, who's played by fine ass Boris Kodjoe. And I always love when him and Nicole Parker are in shows together and they're not together, because they are such a cute couple and I love them in real life. But he is so fine. And Francine's like, look, you ain't been with a man in a minute, and honestly your clothes is looking real dusty, so let's get you hooked up. I'm gonna pay for you to get your hair done. I'm gonna pay for old girl to get you some clothes, and you're gonna go out there, and if it's work, it's work, and if it's more, it's more. But allow the space for it to be more, okay? So she goes, and we find out that Kelby only wanted to request her. So obviously he's seen her in the papers. He knows what she looked like, because he's trying to court. He's trying to get him a woman. You know what I'm saying? And she looking good. The tatas is all pushed up. Sid looking good in the red. Everything is looking great. And so she's slowly allowing herself to kind of let go this dream and this idea of what could have been with Dre, and allowing room for someone, even if it's not Kelby, to kind of be there. Then the worst thing could happen, y'all. She ended up being at a restaurant interviewing him, where Reese and Dre were with one of his clients that he can't stand. And so Dre is being a little, oh, who is this? Like he's not like a #1 draft pick NFL player. Like, sir, no. And Reese is like being polite, hey y'all, da 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 da, and they're just chopping it up. And Dre is still kind of there, and Sydney's kind of like, okay, like, I'm busy, like, I will talk to you later, like, it's cool. And he's still like lingering. And then so the act, who came out with one of my favorite songs of soundtrack history, okay, Ren, I'll be calling them Ren and Stippy, but basically what do they call themselves? The rap duo Dalmatian or something. It was a black guy and a white guy, and then the white guy would always wear black and the black guy would always wear white. And one of my favorite songs to come out of this whole thing, like one of my favorite songs that I randomly sing, is That Hoe Is Mine. I love it. Whoever wrote that into this, like, I'm sure somebody came in and was like, add this. The writers that are credited could not have been responsible for this thing. Like, how amazing is that? So in a movie that's surrounded by beautiful artistry, beautiful hip hop, you also have the backdrop of the love story being sort of the gentrification of hip hop, sort of kind of highlighting where record labels kind of started chasing money and started looking for people who were gimmicky over the real artists and the people who had something to say. So that is the backdrop and the layer underneath the romance and the comedy between Andre, Sydney, and everybody that's in their life. So they walk off and Kelby was like, oh, that's your ex? And she was like, what? Like, nah, that's my boy. Like, we grew up together. Like, that's just my homie. So everybody can see that it seems like there's more, but both of y'all out here lying. Okay, let's continue. So we're moving on. Life is lifing. She's dating, and it seems like she might be pretty happy. Meanwhile, Dre is not happy at Millennium Records. He's like, look, I can't sell my soul no more. I'm out. I quit. The first person he tells is Sydney. Obviously, that's his best friend. And they're talking about everything, and they're just kind of like easing into him fully explaining like what's going on with him. And I really love the scene. They're sitting back to back on the bench. It's an iconic scene. There's posters for it everywhere. And they're just talking about different songs, and they're rapping, and they're going back and forth and just kind of getting rid of the anxious energy before he then opens up that he quit his job and how he can't do it anymore. Sydney is pretty well off, and she's like, look, I support all of your dreams. You're my best friend. I know this is going to set you back financially, so I will be an investor in your private company. Well, he accidentally told Reese that he told her first. So she was already upset that he made this decision without even consulting her. Then she finds out that he told her, the wife, after the fact. So she's feeling more alienated. She's feeling more ostracized within her own relationship because she cannot penetrate this friendship. Now, I, me, 35-year-old, I don't feel too bad because you married him after like 2 months of knowing him. Did you think 2 months of sleeping with him would get rid of or be bigger than 20 years of a platonic relationship? That don't make no sense, and it's highly delusional. And it goes into the fact, I'm getting mature here, it goes into the fact of thinking that what you look like and what you can do in a bedroom can encapsulate and maintain and sustain a relationship. You have to build something with your partner, and their foundation in the movie is built on great sex, and he has a good job and she's a lawyer, so we look good together, and it's about the aesthetic of it all. So she pissed, right? So now all of her anger is guided towards Sydney, because why wouldn't it be? That's the natural course of things for immaturity when you're not talking to your man about the things that your man is making you feel. So you go talk to the other woman. So Sydney and Reese are at like this boxing class or whatever, and they punching the hell out of these handbags. And it comes out that Reese is just like, he don't tell me nothing. I cannot get through to him because you're in the way. And Sydney's like, I can't, like, girl, what do you want? This is my best friend. I don't understand. I'm gonna support his dreams. Like, that's not my fault that he told me first. It's not my fault that he's putting you last in this whole thing. Like, you need to be talking to him. Why you up in this boxing class taking your frustrations out on me? So Sydney left. Anyway, the label that he started, Brown Sugar, he finally launches it, and there's this whole launch party. Everybody's there. His first artist, Cavi, is there. Everything is good. And Dre, you know, they're doing a toast and everything like that. Well, after the toast, Kelby proposed to Sydney. Now, in a turn of events, Dre has vomit all up and through his drunk ass throat. My man was throwed the entire party, and he kept like coming up on her, making her explain like, oh, are you getting married because I got married? Like, is this a competition or something to you? And she's like, look, contrary to whatever it is that you believe, I don't wake up thinking about you, and I'm not thinking about this as a competition. However, you went out there and pursued something and expected me to be there to support you, and yet here it is, I'm getting proposed to, and you can't even support me. Bro, out my face. While this is happening, Kelby goes over to Reese, and he's like, so you've kind of been circling and orbiting their friendship. What is it like? And she's just like, look, it's kind of hard to get up in between, bro. Good luck. So we go through all of these things, and cold feet is happening. Dre is really not taking the news of the engagement well, and Sid is learning that in her brief relationship with Kelby that he doesn't really have an interest in her career at all. And he blames being on the road and playing basketball and stuff like that as the reason for him being too busy to even take time to even read an article of hers. But he made sure to read the one that she wrote about him. But he's just very distant from her dreams while simultaneously getting mad when she's working late and can't show up to support whatever it is that he's doing. So you see on both sides that they're in relationships with people who don't get them, but also they probably pulled the trigger on getting into these very serious relationships when they knew that they had some type of feelings for each other. Dre, back in college, so she already knew that this was a thing. That's not something that can go away, or that probably wouldn't be at the back of his mind. And then her finally confronting the fact that, you know, she does love him. And she talked to Francine like, I don't want to ruin, like, what if what I'm imagining to be good is just imagination, is just a fantasy? Then we go ahead and do something, and now I don't have my friend anymore. And that is real, okay? So we're going through all of these things, and something that ended up happening is Sid thought maybe Reese was cheating on Dre. Now, Dre and Reese have similar phones, and so throughout the movie, like, they kept mixing each other's phones up. And so one day, he got a text by somebody named Richard. And Dre was like, Kev, is your taxi outside? Said, let's go, let's pull up. And he pulled up on Reese, cheating on him. She was on a date with this man named Richard Lawson, and I laughed so hard because Richard Lawson is a real person. Great, kind person too. I met him, got to talk to him for a pretty decent amount of time. Very kind. But yeah, so she out here with no ring on. She got her titties out. She got on Dre's favorite dress, everything like that. And he's just like, okay, boom, done. Let me get your most expensive bottle of champagne and give me the pork chops on the menu, baby, because I'm celebrating my divorce. So they leave, and something very small that I want to mention, but it was very highlighted in this particular scene. When we first start the movie, Sydney's hair is of a certain length, but as we're kind of going through time, her hair length is really the indicator of how much time has passed. We already know that hair grows approximately a half an inch every month. So she goes from like barely shoulder length hair to her hair being in between her shoulder blades, because the timeline is not necessarily spelled out to us. We just know that Dre and Reese had gotten married after 2 months of knowing each other. Kelby proposed to Sydney after 2 months of knowing each other. But there's certain times in the movie where Dre's like, oh, it's been a long time, I haven't seen you, or it's been a long time since we talked. And it seems like they haven't actually been around each other since he got married or since the honeymoon and this, that, and the third. So her hair length told me that at least 6-7 months post him getting married is when he found out that his wife was cheating on him. I can't be sure. but that's something that I paid attention to. And as somebody who's cut her hair multiple times, even this new cut right now, I know how hair works. So anyway, back to the film. He's upset, rightfully so, because even with his own hesitations, he did not step out on her. He maybe was struggling and maybe telling himself, okay, let me make it work. You know, we're cute together. We're the aesthetic. We can look like the power couple, and she's a lawyer and I'm a music exec, and when we go together, you know, things that a lot of people do, and why a lot of people stay in relationships that they should not be in, because they photograph well or they look good on paper. And in the frustrations and in him divesting all of his feelings and everything like that, child, him and Sydney done messed around and slept together. Lord. And she has immediate regret, because she's right. He's still married. She's getting married. This is unfair to everybody involved. What is our friendship going to look like now? She's in a full panic mode. But unfortunately, this was something that needed to happen for them to be able to confront the elephant that was in the room. Mainly her confronting the elephant that was in the room. Does it have a little bit of a strain on their relationship? Yes. But at this point, Dre decides, you know what? I'm going to respect her boundaries. I'm going to give her space. She asked for space. And this is the first time where there was an explicit boundary expressed. And he goes full head into Brown Sugar Records, because what else can you do? You still started your own business, and you have artists to tend to, so he doesn't really have time to opine about anything in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But Sydney takes this time to really evaluate her relationship with Kelby, and he ultimately points it out and was just like, you don't want to get married, huh? And she's like, look, I wish that my brain could change my heart, but it's just not working that way. Until they break up. So we're going through, and Dre was actually able to get Cav's record on the air and everything like that. And Sydney ends up being at Hot 97 because she got an interview with Angie Marr. Okay, Angie Martinez was always in these damn movies. If there was a radio show and it was in New York, Angie Martinez was in the movie. And she's there, and they're talking about one of her latest articles, and they're asking about the hip-hop thing or whatever. But what she wrote about, it was clearly like a love story to the first person that she ever loved. And the first person she ever loved is Dre. But they have this code. When did you fall in love with hip-hop? So we see that all them times that she was writing these articles and this, that, and the third, and every time she started it, it was truly a subconscious and then now a conscious question to herself about when she fell in love with her best friend. So Cavi's hearing it, and he's like, okay, you need to call in, bro. Get your girl. And Dre calls in. He's like, when did you fall in love with hip-hop? And she knows it's his voice. And she's, you know, giving the little PC answer. And Francine on the other side of that glass, like, girl, you better fucking talk to him. And so she finally says, Dre, I fell in love with you the moment I met you. So we have this beautiful love confession from both sides all over the airwaves. And quick insert. I would be sick if I was their exes and listening to them declare they love on one of my favorite radio stations. They was so fucking diabolical for that shit. They said, fuck everybody else. It's us against the world, baby. So he's pulling up. He's still on the phone. He's getting a ride to the radio station. He finally pulls up in person, and they finally get to look into each other's eyes and declare their love. And the soundtrack to their love is Cavi's new song from Brown Sugar Records being played in the background while they slide each other down. So there's that. Brown Sugar. This actually turned into more of a recap than a review, and I just love the movie. And honestly, it was how they kind of did the exes is wild. But you know what I mean? When you're thinking and you're imagining your love life, and like I said, when you put your cap back on of being a teenager or a young 20-something, the only players that's in your story is you and the object of your love and the object of your affection. And it really is everybody else be damned. And so I find that a lot of rom-coms during that era, it really was no real consequence to some of the people that they hurt in their wake of finding their one true love. But I mean, it wouldn't be this type of category if it was supposed to care about everybody else. Like, this is not a drama, okay? It's rom-com, it's supposed to feel good, and it's supposed to challenge you about being true to yourself, challenge you about not making mistakes and going into relationships that you have no damn business getting into, all because you're trying to fit the mold or you're trying to like retaliate against somebody else. So if you didn't learn anything else, the moral of the story is don't have revenge engagement. Don't do that. And that's gonna wrap up this week's Lovember rom-com. Okay, hope y'all enjoy. Go watch the movie. It's like cuddly. Get you some wine, get you some champagne, get you some popcorn, watch, laugh, throw your grown woman and grown man hat on and laugh at the situation, and then step back into that adolescent teen version of you, that young 20-something where you were just making all of the wrong decisions, but it felt good, and just enjoy it for what it is. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up this episode, and I will catch y'all in the next one.